Dude, I know a couple of his people that have hired him and done that cycle, and they literally look like trash.
Okay, let's do the cycle critiques.
Yeah.
So, Davey Boy says, who's a great follower of the channel, you probably remember him, Bostin, he's wonderful. He says cycle critique. So basically, he has a coach who gave him a cycle that he doesn't quite like. He only likes the super draw part of it, and the goal of the cycle is to recomp. He's a lean guy generally, so he's taking 40 milligrams of Anavar a day, 375 milligrams of testosterone a week, 450 milligrams of Deca a week, 300 milligrams of Mastron a week. In 6 weeks, he's going to drop the Anavar and double it all. Oh, where did he go? We lost him?
Is he gone?
Yeah, he'll be back. So he says in 6 weeks, he's going to drop the Anavar and double it all. And then he's going to run for 12 weeks in total with super draw at the end.
That cycle to me is terrible because it was good up until I read that he's running more Deca than test.
Yeah. In what way? Because of the sexual side effects?
I would bring the Deca down to like 250.
But why do you think he's running 450 of Deca? Is he, because that's not the joint thing. The 250 is the joint thing. Are you worried that he's going to get sexual side effects and prolactin?
Yeah, side effects. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. The only time I think people run high Deca, although this is not that high, but the only time they run it high without those side effects is if they have a higher level of test.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Or no test. Sometimes if they have.
So if he wants to have that Deca dose, that's fine, but you got to run more test.
Yeah, if you run something like 250 milligrams of Deca or 300 milligrams of Deca, you'll get the joint lubrication, a little bit of that signaling, and it won't be overpowering. But your test will still be a little bit low. And the Mastron is really high, which could be good. You know, prolactin raises because of estrogen and progesterone. When both of those raise, prolactin starts to raise as well. So
yeah, I would be more the clients that have came to me that have experience with Deca higher than test have had sexual issues, high prolactin issues, and their physiques really didn't even respond that well. I think test is king. I think test should be your base. So that cycle, I'm going to give it a very negative critique because of that. Because that's one thing I preach against. I always think test should be a base.
I agree. 1 second. Let me see if I can do something. I'll do it later. Yeah, so he's dropped out, but I agree. So let's look at another one. Patrick Meehan says, my personal planned cycle is test and Anavar for the summer. 500 milligrams of test weekly and 40 milligrams of Anavar daily. By the way, when people are taking these weird numbers of Anavar 40 and stuff, where do they get the 10 milligram tabs? Do you think they're pharmaceutical?
No, there's plenty of places that carry 10 mgs. Like there's places that call it female Anavar. They make it in 10 mgs just because chicks use 5 to 10 mgs of this stuff. Yeah.
By the way, do you think like the Balkan Anavar, have you ever tried it?
Very good.
Is it stronger than the underground lab ones in the US?
100%. That stuff is like as close as farm grade as you're going to get. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of Balkan fakes on fakes.
Yeah, but
if you're getting Balkan from that source that I gave you,
yeah,
100%.
The problem is he has a minimum order that's like $500, $1,000. It's like, that's the issue. Yeah, but anyway, so he says he's taking 500 milligrams of test weekly. He's taking 40 milligrams of Anavar daily. I figured a cutting cycle would be good for the summer. I'm 41, been on TRT for 2 months with good results and have what I would consider good health and average genetics. I've been back lifting seriously for over a year and don't see any signs of stopping. I call this my midlife crisis cycle. Nice guy. So basically, his cycles
500 test and 40 bar.
Yeah,
I like it. It's simple and effective.
I like it too. Yeah, I like it too. Obviously, test is not the most muscle specific compound. If you're like trying to be like extremely healthy, maybe you would keep the test to your TRT dose and add Primo instead. And Anavar, that's like the lightest thing you could start with the least potential health effects, except your red blood cell count may increase more. But to be honest, you probably feel great on 500 milligrams of testosterone, don't you think?
Yeah, so he would get more muscle growth, I think, running 500 test. And then his physique would actually look better and harder if he did like a TRT test with like 300 Primo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It would look hard, but it would also potentially be safer. I don't know where Blue dropped out, but I think he'll join again.
Let me see if he texted me.
Yeah, yeah. Check. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, see, my computer just shut off and said it's configuring.
Okay. Well, we'll look through the cycle critiques. We got tons of questions today that are really interesting, but let's go through these. So, Muscle Mentor says 300 milligrams of test sip, 600 deca again.
Oh God.
For start building up to 600 test and 1,200 deca over a course of 16 weeks. Anavar 40 milligrams per day for the first 4 weeks, and injectable Winstrol for last 4 weeks at 300 milligrams a week.
That cycle's the worst one I've heard in a while.
No, this one sucks. So he didn't say what the purpose is, right? But let's start with the same thing as last time. Your test is very low and your deca is gonna be it's gonna be double. It's always gonna be double.
That's ridiculous.
You're probably, unless you're like one of those guys that, and to be honest, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't get deca side effects, because everybody that uses deca a lot, those old 90s guys, a lot of them use deca a lot. They have weird personalities, man. There's a deca kind of brain.
Deca definitely, with a lot of people, gives it like a depression effect.
When it's by itself, it's a little different. Apparently, Ty and Clark tells us, but when you combine it with testosterone, so you have high estrogen, high prolactin signaling from the deca or nandrolone. He's back from his iPhone. So when you have that, you usually get a lot of side effects. But then I just wanted to mention something like, why would you take Anavar every single day? I mean, I know bodybuilders do that, and it sounds great, but why not take it on your days off? I mean, you could only resensitize yourself. You're not going to lose much. Your days off might be 2 days a week, 3 days a week.
I would say, yeah, training days. You could do it every training day. Yep.
I feel like that's better. And then, what do you think about this injectable Winstrol? Is there oil injectable Winstrol?
Yeah, there's oil based, but a lot of it, unless it's made right, it crashes. You know.
Oh, really?
Well, you got to heat it up.
I hate Winstrol. When I used to take Winstrol, I'd get really strong fast, and then my joints would start hurting. And I don't know why the joints hurt so much from it, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a great pre-contest drug. It's one of my favorite drugs to run close to a show.
But
you're not going to be training that heavy close to a show anyways.
You think he's going to a show? He's not going to a show. He didn't mention anything.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Winstrol is good for pre-contest.
I wonder if Winstrol has some anti-progestogenic effect, because it feels like the opposite of deca to the joints.
It does. Right? It dries you out. It used to dry my nipples out when I had high prolactin.
No way. Okay, that's a sign.
My nipples used to shrink up on that shit.
I don't think anyone's ever thought of this directly before. This is very interesting.
Yeah, that's why I used to love that shit like 4 or 5 weeks out.
Blue, we're rating cycles because I failed to pull the pictures up, but we have a lot more questions later. This is the last cycle rating we're going to do for James Newman. So he says this is his first cycle off season. He's 19 to 20 years old. He said told to do 300 milligrams test, 300 milligrams deca, and 200 milligrams mastron. What do you think of the cycle overall, and is the mastron necessary / beneficial?
Another horrible cycle. Fuck these goddamn decas.
They love deca. What do you think, Blue?
Honestly, I would have to see the guy, review his blood work. I mean, like, there's so many variables there. I mean, I honestly couldn't answer that. I would have to see a lot of things, his past and present, supplement use, everything. I get those type of questions.
So we should say that clearly. So our point of the cycle critique has nothing to do with health. So we're not talking about health, and we're judging by just what they're telling us. So obviously, these guys, one of them could have, an ApoE4 carrier, and he could develop plaque rapidly. And yeah, we don't know.
Even physically, though, I don't know what the person looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when I get these questions, seriously, 50, 60 times a day, emailed and everything, like, I never even answer these questions because just in case, I don't want them practicing something that could harm them. So I don't really, to be honest with you, like, I don't answer those type of things because it's just a blind answer because I have no idea anything about the person or anything, and, based on their physique, I would have to have history, blood work. There's just so much stuff, even if it's just, a very, quick answer. It honestly is much more in depth.
But Blue, you don't have your clients run DECA higher than test ever, do you?
No, I mean, it's not common. I can say it's not common, but again, it depends on the person, because, like we've always said, at the end of the day, these are different medications and, we're using them in a specific manner, and it depends on the individual. So, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, with different anabolics and, certain things that aren't exactly common, but work for the individual and they're still healthy. So honestly, I would have to know way more about the person. Especially if they're using it for bodybuilding.
So I'm glad that Blue said that, actually, because this is the first time we ever ride the cycle. So maybe we can give a disclaimer to the audience, and this can be remembered by the audience in future episodes. So I also receive, obviously, these horrible questions all the time. I'm running this. What should I run? I have never responded to any of those messages ever. And it's not because I try to offend you guys, but because of a sense of integrity or responsibility. I'm concerned that if I tell you something, first of all, androgens are harmful to your health. There's no question about that. And I don't support the use of androgens actually at all, unless somebody realizes I don't care about my health and I have a goal, right? Now, maybe you could use a little bit of androgens, not harm your health, but in general, you're getting into something that's you're probably going to harm your health in the future. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I want everyone to understand that when we're critiquing these things, we're just taking the information we have. Like Bostin and I, when you cut off, we were basically talking about the fact that you were using higher amounts of DECA than testosterone, and both were quite low. But like we were saying, if you're sensitive to prolactin, specifically this, I don't know what the genetic polymorphisms involved are, but when estradiol and progesterone signaling raise, prolactin raises, but it doesn't do equally in a lot of people. Some people will have high estrogen. First of all, some people don't aromatize much, and then some people do aromatize. They do have high progesterone signaling from trenbolone or DECA or Ment or whatever, and then they don't suffer from higher prolactin levels. I mean, I get consultations all the time. The guy has a prolactin of 7, and he's running these kind of crazy compounds. I suffer a lot from prolactin, so obviously it depends on the person. But we'll answer this last one. I just wanted to say about the Mastron. I believe that unless you're like trying to look good acutely, an AI can do similar things for you. Maybe it can't make you as hard and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I would consider having AI is that the more aromatase goes up above 20 to 40, you're going to have more side effects from the DECA, which is one of the reasons that it's troubling to combine tests with nandrolone and DECA. And that's why Tyan Clark made a whole reputation for himself, mainly around this idea of cycling just DECA, because it less side effects and because DECA is less harmful to the hair.
Dude, I know a couple of his people that have hired him and done that cycle, and they literally look like trash.
Yeah, but those guys are just obsessed with hair loss. So that's the thing. They keep their hair unless they use like finasteride, because then it inhibits. So DHT converts nandrolone into a less androgenic compound at the skin. So at the hair and also at the groin, it would be the same case.
But yeah, nobody at the top level of bodybuilding is doing that,
No, you can't. There's no way you could just run DECA and miss out on everything else. You'd be playing with like half the tools that everybody else has.